Hello, everyone. Today we have two educators joining us from Nepal. I'm going to take a shot at a quick introduction of both of them. So I'm going to start with Swechhya first. Swechhya's pronouns are she and her. Swechhya is the co-founder of the Office of Safe and Respectable Learning at the King's College at Kathmandu in Nepal. And she leads the Education and Awareness Wing at this particular office. For Bhavna's profile, the pronouns are also she and her. And Bhavna is the team lead at the Office of Safe and Respectable Learning Department at the same college. And she also looks after the grievance handling at the college, and she's working on creating the safe and respectable learning policies with the Human Resources Department currently. So, welcome both of you, and thank you for joining us in this initiative of the video insights that we are looking at collecting from different countries. We are really, really happy to have you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shivangi, for having us.
Thank you very much.
Sweta, I was wondering if we could perhaps start with you and know a little bit about the work that you're doing, and especially since you lead the Education and Awareness Wing. So, what does that work look like?
Mhm. So when we co-founded the Office of Safe and Respectable Learning Department in 2020, we got a lot of grievances from students. That time, it was during COVID time, and it was all running online. So when we were looking at grievances and the types of grievances like cyberbullying or harassment, we realized that along with dealing with the cases of harassment, which I think Anna will talk about in a bit, we also felt a strong need for an awareness within the Education Institute. So for faculty, staff, and students. So for that, we started a module. It's a mandatory module for students that the students are supposed to take in the beginning of their school year. It's a 6-week long module where we talk where we discuss issues on identity, safety, inclusion, diversity, and what it means. And every month also we lead advocacy series for faculty around the same topics. So that's largely what we do within the institute.
Okay, all right, that sounds really interesting. And Bhavna, what about you in terms of the work and especially the policies that you're creating? Can you throw some light on that also?
Yeah, sure, Shivangi. So, as Swechha mentioned, that when we always thought this was important, the idea of creating a very safe and respectable learning environment. But then in 2020, when COVID hit us and everything was virtual, we went online, we're not in the campus space, and this idea of learning suddenly changed into a virtual space. And a lot of things shifted, and in that shift somehow it really became difficult for us to ensure what does like safe and respectable learning actually look like. And then that's when as which I mentioned, that we started getting a lot of like grievances related to how the students were getting like unnecessary messages from people with no faces, they would just come in the Zoom session and then write something in private that they don't want to like see or hear. So those were the kind of messages that the students started reporting, and even some of the faculty members started reporting that they had to face misbehavior. And that's when we were very concerned, but also that was the first time when we realized we didn't have anything documented as such that would talk about those kind of issues. And that was the time when we realized that this is it. Now we need to like keep on documenting something, and we need to have things in place that would help us actually talk about it, and even like create a safety measures for all of us, like for the students, for the teachers, for the staff members. And it was at a point, at that point was being difficult, even how to like handle that. A lot of messages were coming and we didn't know how to even like go ahead with it. We had to study a lot, and then that's the point we realized we didn't have any policies. We did have policies of onboarding, and also we did have policies of inclusion that said that inclusion diversity was important, but it didn't mention anything about how to ensure that. So that's when we realized it, and when we co-founded the department, we thought that one very important thing was to document all of that, and to mention how we are going to do what we had to do to ensure that safe and respectable learning. And grievances was one, and onboarding process was one, and how to educate like all of the teachers, students, and even the staff members was one. So yeah, that's when we started it, and the process is still ongoing because there is nothing as such directly related to how education institutions should be like safeguarding or even helping prevent sexual harassment or any incidents as such inside the education institution. So and the journey has been continuing since then, and we have been working on it.
Yeah. All right, that sounds really interesting and a lot of proactive steps being taken there. So that's great to know. And since our conversation is around, the kind of policies that you're making and the kind of concerns as well that you saw, so are there any general or specific laws that exist in Nepal around these topics?
Yeah, so again, I think I can try to answer regarding the laws based on our understanding and research. So the laws related to sexual harassment in Nepal is governed by the Muluki Criminal Code or the National Penal Code Act of 2017, and is mentioned in, I think, section 224, which deals with sexual misconduct leading to sexual harassment, and it also deals with the prohibition of sexual misconduct. And in terms of punishment, it states that imprisonment up to 3 years and fine not exceeding 30,000 rupees, Nepali rupees. And along with that, in 2015, the government of Nepal also enacted the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Prevention Act. So I think that's some of the laws regarding sexual harassment.
Okay. And if we had to talk a little bit about the sexual harassment law as well, what does it look like? Is it specific to cover women, or is it gender neutral? Currently, the law in India is such that we have it as a gender specific law, so it protects women. And as far as the educational institutions are concerned, we have different kinds of regulations that are passed by some of the authorities. Like we have a University Grant Commission, we have something called as AICTE, and there are these regulations that have been brought in place where the complaints for students could be gender neutral. So anybody, irrespective of gender, as a student could report a complaint. But as far as employees are concerned, it covers women only. So just wanted to understand that, comparatively, what does this particular piece look like for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in 2015, when the government enacted the Sexual Harassment at Workplace Prevention Act, so it does define workplace as either government entities or entities owned by, partially or fully owned by government, corporate bodies, or institutions established under the prevailing laws and so forth. And so, like, the education bodies would fall under workplace. However, we have noticed that the Act doesn't cater to education institutes and the contextualized needs of the higher education institutes of Nepal. And although, like, throughout the Act is gender neutral, so it doesn't specify that it's only for women. Again, even though it's gender neutral, I mean, I think there are a lot of limitations within the Act itself. For example, the Act states that the manager is solely in charge of handling cases of sexual harassment and the final decision. So there is no sexual harassment committee that is in charge of the investigation process, or to take the final decision like we see in the Title IX in the US. So in context of Nepal, if you look at the data given by the University Grant Commission, we can see that 92.1% of faculty are men. So most likely the manager who are taking these decisions and tackling these issues of sexual harassment are also most likely men. And similarly, again, there are a lot of limitations. If we look at, for example, like if the accused is found to have committed the act, the first two actions that the manager has to take is, number one, conduct conciliation between victim and accused, and cause the accused to apologize to the victim. So which adds a lot of pressure to the victim, and we can see that it's not really victim-centric. And even the way of complaining, so the complainant is required to file a complaint with evidence within the time frame of 90 days from the date that sexual harassment has been committed. So there's that time limitation and need for evidence as well. So even though the act exists, we can see that there are a lot of limitations within the act.
Okay. Swechha, since we talked a little bit about how the job roles are also placed, I think I also do have a follow-up question for you, that as far as the society is concerned broadly, how do you see gender inclusion taking place? And as far as inclusion of women is concerned, do you see a lot more women joining workforces? And what about the LGBT community as well? Do you see more inclusion taking place, or from a general society perspective, what does it look like right now?
I think there are both positive and negative aspects as well. So a lot of strides have been happening in terms of positive strides when it comes to women or LGBTQI community. But again, there's a long way to go as well. And I think we need to remember both of that. For example, like Nepal does have a lot of progressive laws when it comes to the LGBTQIA plus community, especially in context to other countries within South Asia. For example, the constitution recognizes the members from the various LGBTQIA plus community. But again, even despite of having that in the constitution, we can see that it does not translate into our societal norms and actions, and it's mostly on paper. So again, there's a long way to go in terms of how the society perceives members from the LGBTQI community, and even women from various intersectional background, because to a large extent, members from the queer community are still denied equal rights to education, marriage, property rights, and constantly have to face harassment and discrimination from individuals and institutions.
Understood. Bhavna, coming to you as well, what kind of guidelines, policies, or processes exist for colleges or just in the larger education segment to ensure safe spaces for both students as well as teachers, and generally adults, and also the interpersonal, or the equation that the student teachers may also have. So what do these policies and structures look like?
Shivangi, whenever we think of safe and respectable learning, generally one thing that comes in everybody's mind is how to not have something related to sexual harassment inside the campus setting or in the education institution. But something that we miss is that there are other things. For example, we go through even the students, faculties, and other staff members go through their other kinds of problems. For example, they go through like verbal abuse. There are also something called online harassment. There's also just misconduct or mistreatment. So these are some of the things that like abuse, just simply abuse or intimidation, discrimination based on gender or age or even ethnicity, and something that we don't really think of when we think of like including or ensuring policies related to safe and respectable learning. And one thing that what Swechha also highlighted, which is very sad, is that though there are acts and like legal procedures when it comes to the larger system, when it comes to harassment, there is very less attention when it comes to educational institution. Though like we can see that the cases and the awareness in the sense that we have to talk about it if there is anything related to misconduct, or we have to express this, we have to not keep it with ourselves, is there, it's rising. But what is not in place is that what to do after someone goes through something like that, what to do when someone goes through like feels intimidated, and when someone says, oh, this is not something that I intended, then how to like address that, that's not in place. And this is something that while I am, even if I'm working particularly with the human resource department for the last 3 years, this is something that we have been struggling ourselves, because like as an educational institution, what we have been following is also from the adaptive version of what Swechha mentioned, that is related to workplace harassment act that's in place there. And what we feel is that the adaptation is not enough, because it does not really talk about or encompasses what actually goes inside the campus environment. And each institution is different. Each institution has a different set of like people. It works in even the education institution, like they are they function in a very different environment, and how intersectional it is, how like what kind of policies are should be in place to actually talk about the cultural beliefs or the ethnic beliefs, and these are not even considered or not even talked about. So being a very multicultural country, this is one another like problem, or not a problem but a challenge that we are facing, as to ensure everything in place, but also to make sure that there is a safe and respectable learning environment. Because what we have been facing as a real challenge is how everybody talks about the defines the word even safe and respect in any education institution, and not having that a larger policy in place with regard to education institution has really been a problem, Shivangi.
Understood. And if we had to look at an understanding of the broad kind of incidents that you see,
Mhm.
so primarily what are the kind of complaints or incidents that usually get reported?
So in the like last 3 years, because we have been extensively working on different kinds of grievances, the extensive use of social media is like rising among students, and that might be the reason the cases of online bullying and online harassment is increasing like day by day. The Even the verbal abuse, the report of verbal abuse is increasing, and it's not just in one institution, and like nationwide, the cases of online bullying is increasing very much. And people just like it and even it's being like very challenging to address this kind of issues, because we actually are not sure about who actually is harassing the other person. uh, because what happens is that people think that the person who is using the social media and the person who is actually being bullied is the reason that they are being bullied. And that's why it's very like the cases are increasing, but the cases being reported formally is not there. Even if we have made sure that everything will be confidential, things will be like between the complainant and the person who is looking after it, there are things in place. But the problem is that we know this kind of things from informal channels. They come and share about it just as a problem, but as you said, like the problem has been increasing, but unfortunately and sadly the report is does not like get filed, and that's one of the cases, not just in education institution, but overall in general as well.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. And actually, I think, again, given my experience as well of working in this space, I see a similar trend in India as well, where the use of different online platforms and channels has led to a lot of bullying and harassment complaints as well. And when I study the data from any of the other countries, also be it the US or the UK or whichever country, it seems like complaints through these platforms are really on the rise. And I guess, as you rightly mentioned, during the pandemic, when we started using these platforms, eventually that led to more comfort, I think, that everyone developed with the platforms, and the continued usage that took place, resulting in a lot more sexting and video calling and video chatting and all of those as well, which probably before the pandemic a lot of people were not comfortable with. And somehow that has now continued and has become a part of our DNAs, I think. And on top of that, we also now have situations of morphing and deep fakes and all of that. So
Yes,
that
yes.
has also now added to the trouble. So thank you for sharing that. And I think it's really important for all of us to be looking at ways and policies and and manner in which we can really resolve these challenges, because there is no one way, I think, of really handling these situations also. So while there are policies, the law and the machinery, and as Swechha, you rightly mentioned that having it on paper and then also implementing it in a a practical level, they all also become so important. So thank you really for sharing this. And before you go, I wanted to ask you that from a positive future perspective, given that that's the theme of Unware, we are trying to look at everything that we've done in the past, but also trying to look at solutions. What do you think are some of the key things that we should keep in mind? Maybe Swechha, you can go first, and Bhavna, then you can go.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I think along with more stronger and inclusive policies, I think there needs to be and a lot of education and awareness within institutes that addresses sexual harassment, or topics around sexual harassment like power, identity, inclusion, diversity, and so forth. That's also what we are working towards. And we've also realized that in creating those policies and awareness programs, there's also that need to incorporate experiences from different identities who are from diverse, intersectional, or marginalized background. And finally, I think there's a really strong need for collaborations within organizations, within various education organizations, because I don't think we can work, tackle this in isolation. So there needs to be a broader collaboration, maybe like, inter country collaboration also, and learning from each other and learning from, our experiences, and moving forward, because no matter how far we've come, it's still a long battle to go forward.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. Bhavna, do you have any other thoughts also?
Yeah, so adding on to what Swechha shared, I would just say like the engagement in active learning is really, really important. And when I say active learning, it means like taking the responsibility of our own learning, because most of the time what happens is that we really look forward to the other person or the like some other institution coming to us and then delivering a session or something, and some other person initiating the conversation, some other person reporting the incident, but we're really, really hesitant when it comes to us. So taking the responsibility of our own active learning and trying to because these policies keep on updating, even the issues like all of this even the sometimes what happens is the term in itself becomes very vague and difficult to understand, and just taking that initiative of like learning a new word related to it, or what does that particular code of conduct says about it, by ourselves means so much more, so that when this kind of conversation happens, we can like add on to what we've already learned. And the other thing that is really important in case of grievance handling, because we have been really trying to work on it so much, is that having a very robust and thorough like code of conduct when we are establishing or onboarding any person, so that when we these things are in place, we really know how to move forward and address any kind of like challenges or any kind of issues like this grievances come up front. Because how much we try, these kind of cases might come, and having a very thorough code of conduct will be helpful than just hoping that everything will be fine, and living in a very romanticized and fantasized world. It We really hope that this kind of issues not to happen, but then when things happen, how to address that becomes really important. So having a very robust code of conduct in any education institution is very important. So yeah, these are the things, Sivangi.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your observations, your views. I think this was really a fantastic conversation. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank
Thank you
you for
so much
inviting
for having
me.
us.